This is Vincent Price, Dr. Goldfoot, with plans to possess most of the money in the world. Frankie Avalon knows it. Dwayne Hickman finds out about it. Susan Hart is an innocent tool of the plan.
Hello, darling.
Jack Mullaney helped make the plan. And special guest star Fred Clark just doesn't believe it.
You're nuts! All right, follow me.
These lush bikini babes are produced to perform.
Mr. Armstrong, you're married to a robot.
Dr. Goldfoot is a dangerous man, but he does have his lighter moments.
All right. Shut eye.
We're not talking about actors. We mean a real monster.
I brought her back. She'll live and I'll get her another body.
I'm gonna kiss me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, doctor, help me.
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that
You don't get all your kicks from surfing, do you?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
You think you're gonna make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first.
The American International Podcast.
Are you ready?
Welcome to the wild, weird world of the American International Podcast. My name is Jeff Markin.
And I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
Huh. Well, you threw me. I wasn't expecting that. I'll bet you said that because today we're looking at Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine from 1965.
Exactly that, Jeff. Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine was directed by Norman Taurog, with a screenplay by Elwood, Ullman, and Robert Kaufman. The story was by James Hartford, which we found out is really James Nicholson's pen name, and it was produced by James H. Nicholson and Samuel Z. Arkoff.
Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine stars Vincent Price as Dr. Goldfoot, Frankie Avalon as Craig Gamble, Dwayne Hickman as Todd Armstrong, Susan Hart as Diane, number 11, Jack Mullaney as Igor, and Fred Clark as DJ Uncle Donald Pevney.
It also stars Alberta Nelson as Reject, number 12, Milton Frome as a motorcycle cop, Hal Riddle as a news vendor, Joe Plosky as a cook, with cameos by Harvey Lembeck, Deborah Wally, and Aaron Kincaid, along with Annette Funicello.
And honorable mention to Dr. Goldfoot's robots, portrayed by Patty Chandler, Mary Hughes, Sally Sexy, Lurie Holmes, Sue Hamilton, Laura Nicholson, Marianne Gaba, China Lee, Issa Arnell, Deanna Lund, Pamela Rogers, Leslie Summers, Sally Frey, Kay Michaels, Jan Watson, and Arlene Charles.
That is a lot of robots. Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine opens with some pretty fun credits. There's claymation by Art Clokey, who did Gumby and Davy and Goliath. And we see Golden Clay turning into various characters from the movie. And we get to listen to the Supremes sing the very catchy theme song to Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine.
As the animated sequence comes to an end, we find ourselves in an out-of-control car driving down the side streets of San Francisco. Then it fades to black and our story proper starts.
Well, we hear a crash, and then we see the title, San Francisco, the Day After Tomorrow.
We see Susan Hart as Diane. She's wearing a fedora and a trench coat, and she's walking along the streets of San Francisco.
She walks past landmarks and cable cars, and suddenly decides to cross the street, not in the intersection, and she gets hit by a car. The car is pretty damaged, but she's fine, much to the confusion of the driver.
The driver is played by Aaron Kincaid in a cameo. He would have a bigger part in the Dr. Goldfoot television special to follow, and in the final beach movie, The Ghost of the Invisible Bikini.
Diane marches forward after causing this accident, only to foil a jewel robbery by colliding with the perpetrators. She knocks them both down. She tries to help them up, and for thanks, they shoot her many times, but it does nothing.
Realizing that they are interested in being helped, she just walks away as the police pull up and the men with empty guns surrender.
Empty chambers.
So now we find ourselves in a cafeteria where Craig Gamble, portrayed by Frankie Avalon, is trying to woo Louise, portrayed by Deborah Wally, with a cheese sandwich.
He's really cheaping out on this date, and Louise is not impressed. In fact, she's really offended that he just got her a cheese sandwich in a cafeteria and called that a date. Craig says he's going to get paid soon and then he'll take her out for a proper date, but she's already gone. She stormed out.
But she slams her tray over his head on the way out the door.
And then Diane comes in. She marches straight over to Craig's table and she downs an entire glass of milk, which was sitting there, only to have it shoot out of the holes in her fuselage. So
Craig does what any person would do in this situation. He puts his finger in the spurting liquid and tastes it.
It's like the little Dutch boy. But it's a little more personal than that, I guess. Don't stick your fingers in people's holes, not without asking.
Diane sits down at Craig's table and starts to eat his sandwich. He offers her mustard since that's what he would have put on it if he had been able to eat his own sandwich that she is now eating.
There should be 2 sandwiches there, unless one of them got soaked in milk. Diane pours on some fake Southern charm, and by fake, I'm referring to her accent, which is very obviously not real.
She calls him Todd Armstrong. He corrects her and says that his name is Craig Gamble and that he works with Secret Intelligence. And she says he's a silly boy.
She does say he makes her heart go flippity flippity. So she seems already smitten with him. She says she'll be taking care of him from now on, and Craig complains that he already has a mother. Eventually, she convinces him of her intentions by kissing him and by saying that she's insatiable. Craig says, "What's a rotten girl like you doing in a place like this?" She offers to tell him at his place.
So they arrive at Craig's place. Craig takes Diane's coat, and she's left wearing nothing but a gold bikini.
And once Craig notices this, he can't wait to put her coat back on for some reason.
Which he does backwards.
It's a very awkward scene where he's trying to wrestle her into this coat and she's trying to just wrestle him onto the ground.
And then we realize that someone is watching.
Yeah, we pull back and there's a screen. Somehow they planted a camera in Craig's apartment before he even got there. We see a lab-coated goon enjoying the show of Diane and Craig declaring their love for each other.
A door opens and another individual enters the room. His gold shoes are revealed first.
They're gold slippers with curly-cued toes with little bells on them. It's like an elf.
We pan up and see that it's Vincent Price as Dr. Goldfoot, as if we didn't know.
Dr. Goldfoot addresses the goon, who he calls Igor, and he angrily declares that Igor sent her to the wrong man. He says that's Craig Gamble and he hasn't got a penny.
So after chastising Igor, he radios Diane and says, "Number 11, you're on the wrong track." Then she kind of resets.
Yeah, she lolls her head to the side and her eyes bug out, and then she snaps too.
Craig tries to kiss her again, but her personality has changed.
And so has her accent.
Yeah, she has some kind of European accent, not quite French, but almost maybe.
Yeah, I guess if you just learned how to do a French accent that day, it would sound like that.
She tells Craig to keep his filthy hands to himself and pushes him into the Murphy bed, which quickly flings itself up into the wall, and Diane leaves.
Craig calls for help, but Diane slams the door upon leaving. The Murphy bed slams back down, releasing Craig.
Craig looks up to a portrait on the wall and asks it, "What did I do wrong?" But the portrait turns its back on him.
And for some reason, it's Sherlock Holmes. Maybe because he's some sort of spy. Dr. Goldfoot curses out Igor, then dials into number 11's next victim, the real Todd Armstrong.
Todd Armstrong is being tracked, and a course intersection is planned.
And then Dr. Goldfoot asks Igor to bring out numbers 1 through 9. Then 9 more bikini babes appear.
Somehow, Dr. Goldfoot has the means to make Todd's car run only backwards.
Eventually, he backs the car past number 11.
Dr. Goldfoot instructs Diane to kick the front tire of a car and bend over to look at it.
She does so very provocatively by opening up her jacket so that everyone can see her bikini bottom.
As Todd Armstrong flies by backwards, his eyes are on Diane, and his car crashes up a pole, lifting the back end of the car into the air. Diane thanks him for stopping and says she's a little flat.
Todd disagrees after looking at her bosom, which is displayed from the open trench coat.
She says she was hoping for a lift to the garage. She climbs up into the car and calls him by name, Todd Armstrong, and kisses him.
Todd's entranced. He keeps kissing her even as a cop pulls up, asks for his license and registration. He hands it over without even looking. The cop gives the oblivious lover a ticket and implores Todd to get out of there.
Back in the laboratory, Dr. Goldfoot is watching all this, and he's very pleased. This is how it's done.
Then he advises the girls to deal with wives or other romantic rivals by giving them a set of opera glasses that, when used, shoot poison spikes into the wearer's eyes.
Then Dr. Goldfoot leads the robots over to another machine where he's hooking them up so they can be downloaded with more information. He finds number 10 is already hooked up, and he asks Igor why she's there. Igor explains that she's been given a big assignment and it's taken a while.
They check on number 10, who has learned to shimmy for a British composer. I don't know how that's going to help, but certainly can't hurt.
But Igor and all the other bots join her. But I'm not sure that she's learned anything that she didn't already know.
Meanwhile, Craig is back in the office at Secret Intelligence Command, using his time to call various information numbers. He's trying to find Diane, but he doesn't have a last name, so he really doesn't have a chance of succeeding.
Craig gets another page from his Uncle Donald, and Craig not so gracefully rises from his chair to go meet his uncle.
There's a lot of Jerry Lewis-style shtick here, where he's fumbling around, and eventually he does crash into the office. They both have very, very small offices.
As Craig enters his uncle's office, which is like a closet with 2 doors, he nearly sends his uncle flying out the window.
The door to Uncle Donald's office says DJ Pevney, and when we go inside, we see he's played by Fred Clark. Uncle Donald reads Craig the riot act for mooning over Diane to the detriment of his career with Secret Intelligence Command. There's a sign on the wall that says Secret Intelligence Command, West Coast Division, and it's in Comic Sans font. Very official.
Uncle Donald shows Craig a map with red flag trouble spots, and these trouble spots were all caused by Craig Gamble. He asks Craig to reiterate his number, and Craig says it's 00.5, and Uncle Donald says he can't be issued a gun until he gets a number instead of a fraction, and then he demotes Craig to 00.25.
He says if he wants an actual digit, he needs to forget about girls and do his job right for once.
It's now evening, and we're downtown at the Condor. The Marquis says that Sam and the Ape Man are performing with Diane DeMarco.
This is their first and last gig, as far as we could tell.
Todd and Diane are there enjoying dinner, and Dr. Goldfoot and Igor are posing as waiters.
Diane is refilling Todd's drink glass and sweet-talking him about stocks. She's getting him very, very drunk while drinking nothing herself.
Todd suggests that they go back to her place, but she says a laboratory wouldn't be very romantic, and she explains that she's a laboratory assistant to that guy and points to Dr. Goldfoot. But he quickly zaps her and she resets again. On a side note, the reset process sounds like the Martian ships attacking from War of the Worlds 1953.
And it looks even worse. No, it looks so stupid. Diane says that she won't go back to Todd's place unless they're married. She learned that in finishing school. After a little more drinking, Todd knows that Diane's finger is bare and it needs a ring. At this, Diane gracefully accepts his proposal.
Dr. Goldfoot and Igor are watching from across the room, and a woman customer sitting near them asks for more ice.
She calls him boy.
This is beneath Dr. Goldfoot, so he assigns Igor to the task. Igor drops the ice down the woman's back, and while trying to fish it out for her, grabs hold of her unmentionables. She pushes him into the wall and storms out.
Now we're back with Craig. He's at a newsstand. He sees a cover of Life magazine, and it features a wedding portrait of Diane and Todd. He's surprised to see her there.
He starts to absentmindedly walk away, reading the article, but the owner stops him, saying that he doesn't mind customers' browse as long as they do it on the premises.
Now we're back at the lab where Dr. Goldfoot is setting 3 of his girl bots out after their future rich husbands, and he gives them their opera glasses just in case any wives or girlfriends get in the way.
Igor comes up to announce that number 12 is almost done cooking. This one is intended for the Spanish painter, Pardo Perez, and number 12 comes off the assembly line.
And this is a, I guess, in quotes, homely. She's not ugly by any means, but a little older than the other girl bots, and she speaks with a mannish, gruff voice.
She's a little butch, and her voice is even more so.
And then she lays out Igor, knocks him out, and he's on the floor, making him wish he was dead again.
Todd awakens the day after his wedding night, so that Life magazine cover came out quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. But Todd is very grumpy. He didn't get any last night. Diane explains that she doesn't really feel married because he hasn't given her her wedding gift yet.
Well, she also explains that her batteries weren't charged.
He kind of glosses over that, though.
But fortunately for Todd, she has her wedding gift right here. She reaches into the bedside table and pulls out some documents and has him sign them.
Those documents are his securities, stock shares, anything of value that he owns. She has him sign over to her. She's got a pen handy, and she flips over so he can sign on her back.
Then she tells him to go out and make some money because she has some shopping to do.
This does not improve Todd's mood at all.
Now, Craig is out driving around talking to himself when he spots Diane. He jumps out of his car and runs up to her. She's British now and doesn't recognize him.
Craig begs her to remember him, but she says she has a dreadful memory for faces, especially plain ones.
He keeps trying to drag her off with him, and it seems inappropriate because he saw the Life magazine article and he knows that she's married.
Fortunately for her, I suppose Dr. Goldfoot and Igor happen to drive past at this moment, and they also stop to help.
When they reach her, Diane is beating Craig repeatedly over the head with her purse. Dr. Goldfoot goes to collect her, grabs her by the hand. Craig grabs the other hand, which comes off, sending Craig to the ground.
Diane looks a little happy at this tug of war. I was surprised.
And Craig just stares disbelieving at the disembodied hand in his hand, still wearing a wedding ring on its finger.
Seeing this, he faints, and Dr. Goldfoot spirits number 11 away.
In the car, Dr. Goldfoot tells Diane not to worry about the hand. He has a whole crypt full of them.
He pulls the share certificates out of her purse and surveys his ill-gotten gains. He's happy with the blue-chip stock shares, but not pleased that she forgot to get power of attorney from Todd, entitling her to everything that he owns.
This is an unforgivable offense, so she will have to spend some time in the chair.
Diane and Igor both looked really shocked at this.
So Craig is making a phone call to his Uncle Donald at Secret Intelligence Command. He tells him her hand came off, and in the cafeteria, she spouted milk.
Donald has no idea what sort of nonsense he's babbling on about. He just gets angry. He thinks Craig is nuts and hangs up.
Immediately, the phone rings again, and it's Inspector Abernathy calling and lets Uncle Donald DJ Pevney know that he's coming right over.
Now it's night, and Craig, having somehow found out where Dr. Goldfoot's lair is, sneaks into Goldfoot Memorial Park. There's a graveyard and a large mansion inside a big fence, which he climbs over.
He stumbles through the cemetery and sneaks in the mansion through a window, and he finds himself in a casket showroom.
Igor comes in to dust the caskets. There's a cat there. The kitty's name is Rasputin, and Igor says that he'll feed him later. Then he disappears into a coffin.
Craig had been hiding behind a curtain, but when Igor disappeared, he goes to investigate. When looking into the empty coffin, he steps on Rasputin the cat's tail and falls into the casket himself.
Then we see him sliding down a ramp to the basement. At the end of the ramp, there's a gurney. He lands on it, and that surprises another man. I'm not sure who he is or why he's there.
Yeah, there's a man covered up on this gurney, and he looks as surprised as Craig to be in this situation.
And we're surprised, too.
The gurney crashes into the wall at the end of the hallway, and both of the occupants disembark. The other man runs off, and we never see him again.
No, I think they refer to him later, but no, we never do see him. Craig sees a procession of girlbots marching into a room, and he follows them. Inside, Dr. Goldfoot is looking approvingly at the revised number 12. She's now a comely young redhead.
Dr. Goldfoot sends her over to number 4, where she is to be debriefed in arts appreciation.
Then he gives 2 of the other girlbots their marching orders and shows them his new wife disposal device. It's a tube of lipstick that's actually electrified and will pulverize the woman in question.
So Craig has snuck in, and he is watching this demonstration. Igor runs up saying that he thinks number 11 has had enough. More time in the chair might cause permanent damage. Goldfoot agrees that Igor is probably right, though he hates to admit it.
He opens up the door to the punishment closet, I guess, where number 11 is hooked up to a machine that looks kind of like an electric chair, and she's having live current shot into her. He tells number 11 that he'll let her go if she promises to get the power of attorney. And she does.
He then tells Igor to get number 11 a new hand, and the trio head out into the hallway. Craig sees them coming, so he hides under the sheet on the gurney.
They go out to the hallways. They see the corpse on the gurney. Dr. Goldfoot wonders what this corpse is doing out here. Igor lifts up the sheet, looks at the bare feet of the occupant, and identifies it as the corpse that we saw earlier in the movie. We assume. He commands Igor to get rid of the body and to get number 4 and number 5 to the airport. Chop, chop, chop!
Igor says that he was scheduled for embalming and someone must have been careless and let it roll down there. Igor angrily pushes the gurney into the elevator door. Craig yells out when his head bumps the door. Igor goes to investigate why this supposed corpse yelled out. Craig jumps up, covering Igor with a sheet, beats him on the head with his shoe a couple times, pushes the button of the elevator, which opens immediately, and Craig jumps in, closing the door behind him.
Once upstairs, he hurtles across the casket showroom floor and leaps out through the window, breaking it.
And we hear his car speed off.
He rushes over to Uncle Donald's office, where Donald is meeting with Inspector Abernathy, who has arrived.
Craig comes barreling down the hall, yelling, "Uncle Donald, she's a robot!" Donald hears him coming, so he locks the door.
but he only locks one of the doors. He's got 2 doors to his office. Somehow they're each on a corner, but out in the hallway, they're next to each other. That's physics for you, I guess. So Craig crashes in through the door that Donald failed to lock.
Left with no other choice, Donald introduces Craig to Inspector Abernathy. But Craig recognizes the inspector as Igor, assistant to Dr. Goldfoot.
That's despite the Sherlock Holmes drag that Igor is wearing now. Donald hustles him out of his office before he further offends the inspector. But after he turns back around, he notices that the inspector is gone, apparently out the open window. And they're on the 10th floor.
So it's been a while since we've seen him, but Todd returns home.
He seems really dejected as he walks into his apartment.
He goes over to his bar to pour himself a drink, and out jumps Craig. Todd asks what he's doing there. Craig says he's a sick man, and Todd agrees. Sick meaning Secret Intelligence Command.
Well, Craig's pretending that he has a gun in his pocket by pointing his finger through the fabric. So he does seem a little nuts right now. So sick in that way, too.
Craig pours Todd a drink to tell him what he has to tell him. He tells Todd that he's married to a robot.
Luckily, he had that drink just in time to do a spit take.
And Craig asks Todd if he'd recognize the wedding ring if he saw it. Todd says of course he would. So Craig pulls out the hand with the ring still on its finger and puts it directly in Todd's face.
And he faints. It's just like a mannequin hand with a ring on it. I don't know why everybody's reacting so oddly to this. Then we see a brief scene of the San Francisco Bay and the Golden Gate Bridge. And we're right back with Todd and Craig. I guess that was to indicate that some time had passed.
The two of them have apparently been drinking all this time.
And Todd changed into his PJs, or a smoking jacket at least.
They hear the elevators.
They know this is number 11, Diane, returning home. And to keep Todd from getting swindled again, Craig warns Todd to call him as soon as Diane hands him the pen. He says she's dangerous, tricky, and sexy. Todd says he can handle it and tells Craig to make himself a flock of drinks. He pushes a button on the wall, the bar spins around, concealing it and leaving a blank wall in its place.
Todd stands in front of the door and watches as the chain lock unchains itself and Diane enters the room.
Diane's wearing a riding outfit, but promises to slip into something more comfortable and goes into the bedroom. Todd and Craig, looking out through a portrait with little holes in the eyes, see the door close itself and the chain lock returning to its locked position.
So now we're in the bedroom. Diane comes out wearing a pink nightgown.
It's got 11 yards of fabric. This is not very sexy.
She asks if Todd missed her, and he says, "Did I?"
And a champagne bottle explodes, metaphorically.
She tells him that there's another paper that he forgot to sign. He yells for Craig, but she starts kissing him, and he gives in.
He starts to sign the papers, has a bit of a second thought, but Diane squirts a little perfume in his face, and he forgets all his objections.
Dr. Goldfoot is watching this from his laboratory, and he instructs number 11 to get back as quickly as possible now that the paper is signed.
She lolls her head in that reset motion again, and once she resets, she marches straight back to the bathroom, pausing only to snatch the paper out of Todd's hand. She returns to the bathroom and instantly changes back to the riding outfit and walks out of the room, into the living room, and straight through the closed front door.
Todd's following her, but he is not able to walk through a closed door, and he knocks himself silly.
I don't know how Diane, being a robot and not a ghost, was able to do that, but let's just move on. Dr. Goldfoot tells Igor that he's very happy with number 11. Thanks to her, they have all of Todd's earthly possessions.
Igor wants to show Dr. Goldfoot something he's been working on. It's an attaché case that, when opened, punches the opener.
Igor struggles to open it. When he can't, Dr. Goldfoot does it for him, and he gets a punch in the face from the gloved hand that pops out of it.
He pushes the fist back into the case and slams it shut and says, "Brilliant," and storms off.
Igor wants to check it one more time. He opens it, and he gets KO'd by the gloved hand.
So back at Todd's apartment, Todd is now awakening across the room from where he walked into the door. He brings out the bar from hiding and finds Craig laying asleep on top of it.
Craig's too drunk to remember who Todd is, because he did, in fact, make a flock of drinks for himself. Todd tells Craig he did sign the power of attorney, but with Craig's name instead of his own.
Back at Dr. Goldfoot's laboratory, this mistake has been noticed because number 11 is being punished for her stupidity.
She has to mop the floor, and she gets occasional shocks from some sort of cattle prod that Igor's holding.
Now back at Secret Intelligence Command, Uncle Donald DJ Pevney has locked himself in his office, and he looks very pleased when he hears Craig yell out that she's a robot and that he has someone to corroborate his story because they can't get in through his locked doors.
But once again, he's only locked one of his 2 doors. Todd and Craig plow through the other door, and it manages to open up, hit Donald, and knock him straight out the window. Like I said, it's a really small office.
Craig and Todd pull him back in, but Donald doesn't want to hear any of this nonsense about robots.
They sound like they're spouting nonsense, talking about how she's a robot and Dr. Goldfoot is a mastermind. He yells at them to go. And they do, but not before Craig and Todd show Donald the robot hand that, again, looks very much like a mannequin hand. Donald sees this and goes blank with disbelief in the same way that number 11 does when she's resetting.
Now, Dr. Goldfoot is going over the books and the numbers for their take from the Armstrong holdings, and Igor announces that he has the proceeds from Armstrong securities. He dumps around $150 in singles onto the table.
Real big take. Much wow. Igor pries into Dr. Goldfoot's financial information, but Dr. G snaps the book closed. Igor retreats for a moment, then decides he's going to spy on him with a periscope. Dr. Goldfoot, without even looking, knows what's happening, picks up a bottle of ink and pours it into the top part of the periscope. When Igor gets up, we see he has a black eye.
Dr. Goldfoot sends Igor away, and as Igor leaves, he bumps into a fan, and the money blows all over the room.
Dr. Goldfoot wept.
So now Craig is taking Todd to the Goldfoot Memorial Park.
Craig and Todd roll up to Dr. Goldfoot's mansion. They clumsily enter via the front gate, get to the front door, where they set off a silent alarm.
They ring the bell and are admitted via a trap door that leads directly to Dr. Goldfoot's laboratory. He greets them with a, "How nice of you to drop in."
They get themselves up. Craig's demanding to see Diane. Dr. Goldfoot wants Todd to sign his guest book. He looks at Craig. Craig nods, so he goes down to sign it, barely avoiding getting 2 spikes shot into his head.
Todd and Craig decide to flee, so they run toward an open doorway, but there's a large dude with a sword waiting for them. So they turn and go to another doorway, and another door just drops down as they come to it.
They're getting foiled at every turn.
And a third closes as they get to it, sending them both sprawling to the floor. So now Dr. Goldfoot is going to take them to see his Bikini Machine.
And here, in the manner of all mega villains, he explains the whole plot. He shows off his Bikini Machine, shows them his catalog of rich pigeons to pluck, and that's where he found Todd.
Craig knows that the Bikini Machine is where he makes his robots, but that's not what he's interested in. Todd wants to know where Diane and his securities are, and Craig wants to know where the power of attorney with his name on it is.
Even though it's worthless to him. Craig says that he's with Secret Intelligence Command, and Dr. Goldfoot says, "Not according to your uncle." And then he invites them to dinner.
Just then Diane comes out and walks across the room. Todd tries to talk with her and follows her into the dining room.
But she's ignoring them. There's 4 chairs at the table, and they all sit down.
As they sit down, Dr. Goldfoot pushes a button, and shackles appear around Craig and Todd's legs, clamping them to their chairs. Craig advises Todd not to eat the food because it's probably poisoned. Goldfoot is a little offended and says he would never poison this delicious food. And then Todd asks to have a word with Diane. She is, after all, his wife.
But Dr. Goldfoot says that she only speaks Japanese now. And I guess she does because they have a conversation that kind of sounds like Japanese. The big dungeon master that they ran into earlier chases another girlbot through the room, and then Dr. Goldfoot serves Todd and Craig some wine. Again, they look at each other and shake their heads. They pour it on the floor rather than drinking it, and it explodes. Igor brings in dinner, which is just a couple of big lobsters on silver platters.
And Igor realizes that he forgot the knives. Dr. Goldfoot says, "Never mind, he'll take care of them." And he pushes another button, and 2 knives fall from the ceiling, embedding themselves into the table, mere inches from where Craig and Todd are sitting.
No harm done, though. And then Igor manages to drop one of the lobsters into Dr. Goldfoot's lap. Todd and Craig are trying to get away, but they can't. And Diane is merely looking at them sort of coyly.
Now I presume it's after dinner because Dr. Goldfoot is showing Todd and Craig his family gallery.
It's portraits of his ancestors, which viewers of the AIP Poe movies may recognize as some of the characters from those.
Then he takes them down to his torture chamber, which they refer to as the barbershop.
Because there's a guillotine, and he lets it loose. Luckily, there's no head in it, but it does look pretty impressive.
There's an Iron Maiden.
There's just a skeleton inside, doing its best Senor Wences impression. And then he takes them to see the stocks.
And there is somebody in the stockade.
Dr. Goldfoot grabs the brown hair, lifts it up, and we see that it's Annette Funicello. Craig and Todd look at her, kind of do a double take, and then look at the camera, breaking the 4th wall. And Craig says, "It can't be."
They're taken to another doorway, and Dr. Goldfoot says that they're going to really like this. The door opens to reveal Eric Von Zipper, chained to his bike. He revs the engine and says, "Why me? Why me all the time?"
And then Dr. Goldfoot closes the door.
Dr. Goldfoot removes Todd's jacket and tosses it into the fire. Todd asks, "What's the big idea?" And Dr. Goldfoot says, "This," and pushes him against the wall where he is shackled by the ankles and wrists. Craig asks, "What's the big idea?" And Dr. Goldfoot says, "This," and pushes him into his cell. The door slams shut, and Craig asks again, "What's the big idea?" Dr. Goldfoot says, "You already said that," and strolls on.
Dr. Goldfoot tasks Igor with getting Todd to sign the document. Igor threatens him with various torture implements, but Todd won't give. Igor gets out a device that separates the head from the neck. He's starting to chain it around Todd, but gets his own feet caught in it. And the next thing you know, he's suspended from the ceiling by his feet. He calls to Dr. Goldfoot, who must come in and rescue him.
Dr. Goldfoot brings Igor down and then takes Todd to another room.
He's got that electrified lipstick as a weapon and uses that to encourage him to move along.
So now Todd is being forced to reenact the climax of The Pit and the Pendulum.
And they use some of the same footage from that movie in the wide shots. Todd is strapped to a table, bound and gagged, and Dr. Goldfoot orders Igor to bring Craig down too.
Igor goes to collect Craig. He unlocks the door, which revolves, leaving Igor inside the cage and Craig free on the outside.
Igor says, "Well, I still have the key," holding it out so Craig can see it. And Craig brings out some shackles and locks Igor to the prison door. Then he takes the key and runs down to the pit. And as he is wont to do, after he swings open the door, he knocks Dr. Goldfoot off the staircase and down into another pit.
Craig stops the blade, releases Todd, and the two of them rush out of the room. Dr. Goldfoot is yelling for Igor to seal the doors, but Igor is still locked in that cage.
Todd wants to get Diane, but Craig says he should forget about her. Dr. Goldfoot climbs up from where he fell. Craig and Todd run into a squadron of girlbots who try to zap them with their electrified lipstick, but Todd and Craig get out of the way in time.
Goldfoot has freed himself from the pit and is rushing after them, but he's been delayed because he has to release Igor.
Igor promises that he'll do his best this time, and Dr. Goldfoot goes, "Oh no, not that."
Todd and Craig have found a car to use. They're rushing from the scene. Igor and Dr. Goldfoot are in pursuit via a motorcycle and sidecar.
This car must be Dr. Goldfoot's because it has a lot of buttons and switches on the dashboard, and Craig decides that it's time to play with those. He wants to maybe slow the pursuit, but all he does is inflate the front seat so that Craig and Todd are both pressed into the ceiling.
Another button causes the steering wheel to switch positions to the passenger side.
But Todd presses that one right away to get it back.
Pursuing on the motorcycle, Dr. Goldfoot has a device that blows up the car. As Dr. Goldfoot and Igor are coming up on their prey, an oncoming bus causes the bike and sidecar to separate, but it's only a moment before they are joined back together.
Craig and Todd need some wheels, so they steal a sports car. They drive off, pulling the mechanic that was working underneath it along for a bit, and the chase continues.
But it's not too long before Goldfoot catches up to them, and he blows up this car too.
Don't know how he was able to do that. Igor drives the motorcycle and sidecar straight into a train tunnel, breaking that up.
Craig and Todd board a cable car. Goldfoot and Igor are pursuing in another cable car.
They've commandeered it, and they're the only passengers inside. Somehow they managed to make it go off the tracks, though.
So now Todd is driving a scooter with Craig holding onto him from behind, and Igor and Dr. Goldfoot are still following in their cable car.
They cross the Golden Gate Bridge. Now I guess they're in Oakland. They go through some parks, hit an obstacle, and then flip onto a boat, which is sitting on a trailer, and the chase proceeds.
Igor has a grenade that he's been saving for a special occasion. He tries to toss it, but it hits the ceiling and falls behind him, blowing up the cable car.
Todd and Craig hit the water in their boat, but then they decide to swim to shore. And now somehow Dr. Goldfoot and Igor are pursuing in a Jeep.
Todd and Craig realize that they're at a missile launching test site, and this gives Todd an idea. He motions for Dr. Goldfoot and directs them off the edge of a cliff.
They land face down on the beach, just in time for a Navy ship to fire missiles at them, and the Jeep explodes, leaving nothing but a frame behind.
So to celebrate, Todd invites Craig to Paris.
Craig's reluctant, but Todd says he's paying, so Craig says, "Oui, oui."
On the plane, Craig and Todd recognize the flight attendant. It's Diane, who now speaks German.
Also on the plane is Uncle Donald, who is utterly smitten with Diane, but that's not the end of the surprises for Todd and Craig.
No, the sound of laughter from the cockpit gets their attention, and they see that Dr. Goldfoot and Igor are standing there.
They're the pilots.
And they apparently survived the crash.
That's almost the end, but then we see Diane, back in her trench coat and fedora, saying something in Spanish that sounds like, "You're next, senor."
And then we get to read the end credits while watching women in gold bikinis dance and gold shoes dance on their own.
We see a promise that Aaron Kincaid, Harvey Lembeck, Deborah Wally, and Annette Funicello will appear in The Girl in the Glass Bikini. Although that is not true. And that's the end.
You are listening to the American International Podcast, where we're talking about Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine from 1965.
The original idea for this picture came from James H. Nicholson, the president of American International Pictures, or the co-head, who wanted to showcase the versatile talents of AIP contract player and his personal honey, Susan Hart. Samuel Arkoff wrote in his biography that near the end of the beach party cycle, as we could see the trend was fading, James and I decided to mix genres, altering the focus of the beach genres and making comedy almost as important as the daring bathing suits and fun-loving teenage antics. We still had a contractual obligation to Vincent Price to cast him in a couple of movies a year, so we put him in Dr. Goldfoot. His intent was to capitalize on the popularity of James Bond, thus the titles kind of spoofing Dr. No and Goldfinger, while also luring the teenage guys whose heartbeats would accelerate to a 180 at the mere sight of bikini-clad girls.
Nicholson provided the story and is credited as James Hartford. He hired Robert Kaufman to write the first draft. Director Norman Taurog hired Elwood Ullman to do a rewrite, and Taurog remained intimately involved with the content. D. Hayward later claimed, without substantiation, that he completely rewrote Robert Kaufman's script.
The initial concept was reportedly another pairing of the popular duo of Frankie and Annette. However, Annette Funicello informed American International that she was pregnant, and it would have been very noticeable when principal photography started.
The original title was announced as Dr. Goldfoot and the Sex Machine, and the film was to have been directed by William Asher. Taurog shortly thereafter assumed the helm as director, and Dwayne Hickman joined the cast. Filming began in late summer 1965 with one of AIP's largest ever budgets. It was the first AIP movie to cost over $1 million.
Vincent Price stated in a 1987 interview with David Del Valle that the original script was a camp musical. He compared it to Little Shop of Horrors. Price said that it could have been fun, but they cut all the music out, though it's not clear whether the footage was actually shot or if the idea was abandoned during production.
According to Susan Hart, one of the best scenes I've seen on film was Vincent Price singing about the Bikini Machine. It was excellent. And I was told it was taken out because Sam Arkoff thought that Vincent Price looked too fey, but his character was fey. By taking that particular scene out, I believe they took the explanation and the meat out of that picture. It was a really unique explanatory scene, and Vincent Price was beautiful in it, right on the money.
That's too bad. I wish we could have seen that. Norman Taurog's biographer wrote that the original plan had been to follow the AIP formula and have songs integrated throughout the film, but Norman brought in Elwood Ullman to do the rewrite, as we said, and the final script was like a good-natured spoof of James Bond films with no songs, and this apparently disappointed Vincent Price, who had been looking forward to singing.
The streetcar scene was filmed at the West Portal Tunnel. Filming went for over 30 days, taking place on location in San Francisco and on the backlots at the producer's studio at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studios. The day after the company returned from San Francisco, rioting broke out in Watts in South Los Angeles. On August 30th, the unit moved to MGM Studios Lot 2 to shoot on their New York street set for a couple of days before returning to the producer's studio.
They did film that climactic chase sequence in the Bay Area, though. There's no way to fake that. When creating Goldfoot's lair, designer Daniel Haller used some of his designs from The Pit and the Pendulum, and they used some scenes from that movie in this one. They also used stock footage of battleships from another AIP release, Godzilla vs. The Thing. That was during the climax when they shot the Jeep on the beach.
During filming in Los Angeles, the city was gripped by a heat wave. Sometimes temperatures on one of the sound stages reached over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees centigrade by mid-afternoon. On the afternoon of August 15, 1965, the company was returning from lunch when one of the electricians, Alva Roy Hicks, passed out from the heat and fell to his death from a catwalk.
Wow, that's really sad. Some of the taglines for this movie's release included, "This is a Bikini Machine, and this is Secret Agent 0014, like we said, he got demoted, on the trail of the vile Dr. Goldfoot, who manufactures cuddly time bombs."
The evil Dr. Goldfoot has a kiss button and a kill button. Press the right one and you'll go, go, go.
Super sex bots built to kill. See cuddly bikini girls made to order.
Get in on this fantastic plot to control the world's wealth. Put your financial future in the evil grasping hands of Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine. It turns out bouncing broads, beautiful babes, and bundles of boodle.
What does that mean? You can answer me.
I don't know.
Box Office Magazine predicted that this film would attract James Bond devotees, as well as horror fans through Vincent Price, and the teenage audience through Frankie Avalon, who sang his way through the Beach Party films.
The film had its premiere at the Golden Gate Theater in San Francisco, where Nicholson had been a manager. The key cast members embarked on a 30-day tour of 18 cities and 13 countries to promote the film.
Also to promote the movie, American International built a traveling bikini machine, and in transporting it, it caught fire on the Hollywood freeway. Papers reported that after installation of a new generator and a quick paint job to hide the scorch marks, it was safely back on the road.
American International Television produced a music TV special episode promoting Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine. They had appeared for one night as the ABC scheduled show Shindig. This show, called The Wild Weird World of Dr. Goldfoot, starred Vincent Price, Tommy Kirk, and Susan Hart, and featured many songs like It Works and What's a Boy to Do that may have been cut from the cinema release. Louis M. Hayward and Stanley Ross wrote the 30-minute short comedy musical TV special, which aired November 18, 1965 on the ABC network.
And the movie's UK title was Dr. G in the Bikini Machine, and that came after a lawsuit filed by London Doctor, whose last name was Goldfoot.
According to Norman Taurog's biographer, the film was a moderate success in the United States, but did quite well in Europe, particularly in Italy.
Box Office Magazine raved that by teaming with Vincent Price, American International's master of horror, with several of the company's beach boys and girls, notably the popular Frankie Avalon, who leaves the singing chores to the current warbling craze the Supremes, and the lovely Susan Hart, in a thrill-packed but completely fantastic spoof of the James Bond films, AIP has a sure box office hit, and added it's all grand fun.
Variety said the expensive-looking production runs the comedy gamut from high to low. The Los Angeles Times said the film has enough fresh, amusing gags to make it entertaining. Price is splendid. Hollywood Citizen Review agreed, saying all players performed well, but Vincent Price, as always, stole the show.
But the New York Times had only kind words for Fred Clark, saying this new American International goodie is pure, dull junk. The withering sarcasm of Mr. Clark is welcome as usual, from the bald veteran. I don't know why they had to put bald in there. Continuing, but brother, the picture. What a mess and what a waste.
In July 1965, a sequel was announced to be made the following year called Dr. Goldfoot for President, to begin filming on May 14, 1966 for a September 14th release. This picture didn't happen, and Vincent Price instead returned for the 1966 sequel, Dr. Goldfoot and the Grill Bombs, directed by Mario Bava.
Those movies are two of the films that are said to have had a major influence on the Austin Powers films.
Frankie Avalon and Dwayne Hickman play characters with the same names as they had in the previous year's Ski Party, except that the names were reversed, where Frankie Avalon portrayed Todd Armstrong and Dwayne Hickman portrayed Craig Gamble.
So creative. Among the girls who play Goldfoot's robots are Deanna Lund, 3 years before she joined the cast of Irwin Allen's science fiction series Land of the Giants, and China Lee, a former Playboy playmate who married Mort Saul, Lurie Holmes and Laura Nicholson, who are James H. Nicholson's own daughters, and Alberta Nelson, the number 12 reject. She was in all 7 of AIP's Beach Party films as a member of Eric Von Zipper's motorcycle gang, the Rat Pack.
The theme song, The Bikini Machine, had music and lyrics written by Guy Hemrick and Jerry Steiner, and as we mentioned, the song was performed by the Supremes.
I found this interesting little tidbit in one of our books. It's called Faster and Furiouser, and in it, the author recounts an interaction between AIP writer and producer Louis M., or Deke Hayward as he's known, and co-head James Nicholson at a party. After Hayward tried to unsuccessfully hit on the future Mrs. Nicholson, Susan Hart, Nicholson told Hayward about his idea for a movie. It was about a mad scientist with a machine that makes rowboats. Hayward told Nicholson he didn't mean to be disrespectful, but he had never seen a rowboat machine. Not rowboats, said Nicholson, rowboats. And then he spelled it out, R-O-B-O-T-S, rowboats. Now on board with the robot idea, it was Hayward who suggested Norman Taurog for directing duties.
Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine was released at a time when the beach movie cycle was coming to a close. Several times during the film, there's a marquee for a film called The Girl in the Glass Bikini. And this film is also alluded to in the credits as coming soon from American International. but this film was never made. The next film in the beach cycle would be The Ghost in the Invisible Bikini. But around this time, there were a couple of different films announced. This comes from a box office article on November 29th, 1965. Among the other big 1966 releases, Bikini Party in a Haunted House in Pathé Color and Panavision, starring Tommy Kirk, Deborah Wally, Aaron Kincaid, Nancy Sinatra, and Claudia Martin, with established stars Patsy Kelly, Basil Rathbone, and Francis X. Bushman, is to be released at Easter. The Girl in the Glass Bikini, a science fiction comedy with music to be made in Pathé Color and Panavision, starring Frankie Avalon, Annette Funicello, and Aaron Kincaid, is for a July release. So it just makes me wonder if Bikini Party in a Haunted House became Ghost in Invisible Bikini, or if kind of both of these movies were merged into the one.
I guess unless we have the notes from a pre-production meeting, we might not ever know.
Unfortunately, I believe you're right.
Vincent Price has appeared in countless movies for AIP. I guess we could count them, but I just picked a few, the ones that we've already done episodes on. We did The House of Usher from 1960, The Last Man on Earth from 1964, War Gods of the Deep, 1965, same as this movie, and of course, The Abominable Dr. Phibes in 1971. And there's plenty more that we didn't do episodes on, like Dr. Phibes Rises Again in 72.
We did Beach Party.
He also had a brief cameo in Beach Party.
Frankie Avalon has also appeared in many an AIP film. Most of the Beach Party movies: Panic in Year Zero, 1962, Operation Bikini in 1963, Sergeant Deadhead in 1965, Fireball 500 in 1966, The Million Eyes of Sumeru in 1967, and Horror House in 1969.
Dwayne Hickman was a little less prolific as an AIP player, but he was in Ski Party, How to Stuff a Wild Bikini, and Sergeant Deadhead, all in 1965. Big year for him.
And Susan Hart had appeared in Pajama Party in 1964 and War Gods of the Deep in 1965, and would go on to appear in The Ghost in the Invisible Bikini the following year, 66.
And Fred Clark was in Sergeant Deadhead in 65 and appeared in War Italian Style in 1966.
So, Cheryl, it's time to hear your thoughts on Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine. Using our AIP scale, where A is awesome, I is intermediate, and P is pathetic, how do you rate this film?
This movie doesn't have an especially clever plot. It may have seemed novel back at the time this movie came out to do a James Bond spoof, but by now it's something that I've seen many times before. And the dialogue's not that exciting. So what I guess it comes down to for this movie is the performances. I think anyone who's ever listened to me talk about Frankie Avalon before knows that I'm not too excited about his performances, but here they paired him with Dwayne Hickman, and this meant that the film kind of halves his presence, in a way, and that division lessens my annoyance with him. Dwayne Hickman sort of balances him out, I think. Fred Clark does his level best with a part that is not too unlike the one he played in Sergeant Deadhead, the massively put-upon authority figure, and he's fine. I did actually like Susan Hart in this film. She swings from sexy to silly pretty well, and since she wasn't the one who wrote the dialogue or did the directing, blame her for the stupid head law that number 11 does whenever she gets a message from Dr. Goldfoot. I also really liked Jack Mullaney as Igor. His performance verged on camp, but he never went full Paul Lynde with it. But of course, I think the best performance came from Vincent Price as Dr. Goldfoot. Once again, he saves a picture that you could call beneath his dignity. And he does it by turning in a performance that's a little hammy, but also a little sophisticated and a lot sinister. He hits all the mad scientist notes and seems to be having fun sending up his earlier AIP film roles. And if he's not having fun here, well, then that's more testament to his abilities as an actor. I think this movie has fun cameos, great location shots. I love the scenes of San Francisco. Haven't seen them since I was 14, so it was nice to revisit them. And it has an absolute earworm of a theme song sung by the Supremes. Seriously, every time I hear it, it sticks to my head and I can't get it out for anything. I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to give this one an A. It's maybe a weak A. The movie obviously has flaws, but I enjoyed it. It gets an A from me. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I tend to enjoy the AIP comedies, with the exception of Sergeant Deadhead, which was nothing but a disappointment to me. But this movie, Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine, is kind of a culmination of everything AIP did up to that time. It owes a lot to the Beach movies, of course. It has obvious references to Pit and the Pendulum and other Poe pictures in the franchise with the portraits in Dr. Goldfoot's gallery. And something that AIP tends to do in their comedies is to do self-referential bits. We saw this in Beach Party when Dorothy Malone's character jokes that Bob Cummings should sell his story to American International. And again, when she spins a record with the American International Records label. And another one we haven't talked about yet, but How to Make a Monster features the non-existent American International Studios. And in doing so, that might be the first example of meta humor in a film.
Oh, wow.
And Dr. Goldfoot of the Bikini Machine just has several, we'll call them Easter eggs from past movies. The opera glasses with the spikes coming out, that's from Horrors of the Black Museum. And whether this was intentional, even the names Craig Gamble and Todd Armstrong had been used before. As we noted, this movie was intended to be a musical. I don't think it really needs the music, though I think it would have been fun to have a musical number with Vincent Price singing. And I imagine there was also a Diane DeMarco song that was probably cut because she's featured on the marquee, and Sam and the Ape Men kind of get a song. I think it's an instrumental. And there's someone go-go dancing out in front of them, who I assume is Diane DeMarco. And that might have been her only claim to fame because Googling her, all we find out is that she appeared in Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine. And the Annette Funicello and Eric Von Zipper cameos obviously wouldn't be there if not for the Beach pictures that came before. So I enjoy watching something that rewards me for paying attention. And when you've been doing this long enough that you get the jokes, you kind of feel that you've earned the pat on the head. This movie is just a lot of fun. Product of its time, and right before everything was going to change, there was one more Beach Party picture, and then a month after that, The Wild Angels would come out, and everything was suddenly the counterculture instead of the beach culture, and these films would quickly become a thing of the past. So this is kind of a last hurrah in a way, and for that, even if for no other reason besides the fact that I think it's a fun movie, this one gets an A for me.
I don't think we'll feel the same about the sequel when we get to that, but this definitely was one we can both agree on that was fun.
So it seems this is the end, or is it?
It is.
Of this episode of the American International Podcast. I'm Jeff Markin.
And I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And we'll meet you at the drive-in. Follow the American International Podcast on Instagram and Letterboxd at AIP_pod and on Facebook at facebook.com/American International Podcast.
The American International Podcast is produced and edited by Jeff Markin.
A man whose mind is distorted by hatred.
And Cheryl Lightfoot.
A girl hungry for too many things.
The American International Podcast is part of the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.